Hey everyone, and welcome to my miniature painting video. This is the first time I've ever done a recording like this, so enjoy. I'll just kind of be going through and popping in here and there to explain what I'm doing. This is a 3D printed Leonin Barbarian that me and my husband printed on our Elegoo Mars resin printer. I'll link some of the details down below. We also got the file on My Mini Factory. I'll also link that. We paid a couple bucks and it was definitely worth it. She is super cool looking. I love barbarians and I love this figure a lot. So right now I am just adding in some base colors for like just, very first coat. I'm super rusty at miniature painting, so bear with me. There's going to be some fun little mistakes and such along the way. But it's fun. It's all in good fun. And right now we're just kind of going through and adding in some of the color for her skin. She's going to be a little rugged later, so I kind of let myself just go like, okay, it's okay if I make a couple of mistakes here and there, because there's going to be some washes and some dirty splotches later because she's kind of been out in the battle. And up next we are going to be adding in a little bit here on the hand. Adding in some more colors and details. The base that I'm holding and spinning her around on is actually a miniature little pottery wheel. So I just stuck her down with some little blue tack and it works perfectly. Over time the blue tack gets a little tacky and doesn't quite hold her up very well. But just replacing that and getting some new blue tack works perfectly. And I can spin her around and just hold it really easily in my hand. So it works really well. I highly recommend it. And up next, I think I'm going to add some red. Yep, so I didn't plan out any of the colors. Normally with miniature painting, you kind of think what your color scheme is going to be. I was kind of winging it, going like, okay, I want red here and there, and where else am I going to put it? All right, over there. Now we're painting in some of the bandages. Once again, just continuing to do the base colors. I'll be adding in some shading later as well and going over things that I didn't quite like because, it's fun. And yeah, I'll go ahead and let you enjoy and I'll pop back in later and it'll be lots of fun. Alright, so now I am adding in sort of the final of the base coats. I really was learning along the way where adding water to my paints helps it spread around a lot better. And I'm sure anyone who's into miniature painting or looking to get into it will recommend add water to your paint. It just helps the paint spread out like more evenly, less brush strokes. And I also learned too that the yellow I was using was pretty thinned out, so the primer that I sprayed on her after I 3D printed her, which was gray, sort of made it a little bit hard to get a richer yellow. I was layering it quite a bit and I end up doing a lot more layers later on her skin, but it was just kind of a learning process along the way. I'm going to be trying out some different primers and future paints, trying white as well as black, maybe layering some to create some different shading effects just with the primers themselves. But this is most fun. So these are some really super rich colors with the gold and painting in some of the details that I'm going to kind of tweak and play around with later. I'm kind of figuring out like, okay, I want her to be kind of gladiator style, sort of like a hodgepodge, like mess of different plates and coins and different things that maybe she's collected in her battle, and maybe her tribe has like different little tokens and such. I was kind of thinking along the way of what her story might kind of be like, and as I'm going along, I'm just kind of adding the different touches here and there, adding in a couple details. I think I'm adding in some darker browns to sort of bring out some of the tones. A little bit of shading, which is always good. Yeah, this was super fun, and learning all of this and recording and time lapse, it's definitely a process, but I'm looking forward to doing more of these videos in the future. And if you're interested, and I appreciate it, please follow along on my journey, and you can follow me and like the video if you like it. I'm always open for recommendations as well, or tips and tricks. I myself have been watching lots of YouTube videos on miniature painting and all that. Oh yeah, so here is, I sort of created like a orange and yellow wash to go over her because I wanted to give her a little bit more warmth, a little bit more tones. I liked the yellow, but it felt a little bit flat, and so I'm just trying to kind of layer up on that just to give it a little bit more interest. Now I'm playing with her great axe and adding in some silver, and that's going to be really cool later because I get to rough it up and add some neat little details, which is always fun. Adding in some minor details there with the, and I'm just staring at it trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? How do I like this? Also letting it dry too in between different layers is really important, because if you leave the layer really wet and you go in and you're trying to paint, it's like, oh my gosh, it's just, it doesn't want to work with you. So, and now I am probably figuring out what I want to do next. Going in with the wash, I think. Let's see. Yep, so I'm going in with just a dark wash that I made. I just kind of mix it up with some water, sort of roughing her up a little bit and trying to create a little bit of shade and contrast, which I was really enjoying how it was turning out, because this is always the fun part. I think adding the dark washes as well as adding in some of the highlights. And I end up reworking her a little bit more later as well, because I wanted to bring out some more tones. Because getting that good shade and that good highlight is always a nice experience. Alright, and here I am trying to bring out some of the sort of the higher tones, like that I want to pop out a little bit more. So to bring out a little bit more of like the, hey, here's where the sun's hitting her on various parts of like her skin and her equipment, and trying to work some of this in. It doesn't come out exactly how I wanted, but I was really happy in the end. And it's funny, when you're painting, everything looks rather shiny, but all the paints that I'm using, except for like the silver and gold, everything is a matte color, so everything comes out nice and flat in the end. And I do an overcoat on her with like a glossy acrylic clear coat, because I wanted her to look a little bit shiny too, because I was kind of enjoying that. Oh yeah, here, so I am going in with some details and adding in some darker tones, a little bit of line work. I wanted to bring out some of the shading and the shadows, bring out the muscle definition as well. Try to get the eyes to work. That's really hard, especially because it's such a fine detail, and trying to make it look good and not like a splotchy little thing is pretty funny. Just kind of working in some more of the shading and details here, but I'm really enjoying how it's turning out, and I hope you are too. Here I think I'm dry brushing a little bit, doing a little bit of highlighting, trying to bring out a little bit of the tones, not too crazy. Oh, and then she leans over a little bit. That blue tack, it works, but then doesn't quite. And I think I ended up just taking her off. So I was like, I'll just hold her. She's pretty dry. It's like, looks good. Fabulous. And then in a little bit, I'm going to be painting her puck that she's standing on, do a couple of the similar techniques. This is fun. I'm adding in some details with a little bit of blood, a little bit of cuts. She's been out battling, chopping down her enemies. This is probably my most favorite part, is adding in those details. They just kind of make it really cool. All right, and here we are onto the puck that she's standing on. This is just like was also 3D printed on our printer, and then I did the primer on it with the gray, and now I'm just going in with a dark gray color to sort of be that bottom shadow. And then I bring her back, so I was like, man, I need to fix up a couple little parts of her. I think a little bit of the shading I wanted to bring out a little bit more. It's kind of a learning process, you know? But it's a lot of fun too, and it's definitely a learning process, and it's one of those things where, like, I do a lot of digital art typically, so with this I definitely get to figure out mixed media, you know, working with paints, working with water. I want to try some different techniques in the future as well, maybe a little bit of airbrushing. Here I'm just adding in some more of the details with darker colors. Eventually I'll do a little bit of dry brushing with just white as well. I was using yellow, but I like that how that's turning out. And then this, I just put a little bit of gray and smooth it around. Try to create a little bit of a stony texture, kind of like cracked ground. And I wanted it to match her as well, so I will do a couple more details there, figure out the camera. Here's a little bit of the white highlights. It came out a little bit more dense than I wanted. I wanted to be a little bit more of a drier brush, but that's okay. It still looks cool. I'm still proud of it. I wanted the sun to come in from sort of that top right side, and I'll glue around the base later too. And here I'm gonna match the base to her. So she's got some like sort of dirty-ish gold tones with some of her armor. So I am adding that in to sort of match it. Like maybe this is, I don't know, part of her area. She's gonna do some battling in a second. Oh yeah, so this is just a dirty wash that I made. Same thing that I used on her earlier. I just threw that on there, wiped it off a little, let it dry, and made sure it was dry. Adding in a couple details, because, you know, she's a barbarian. She's got a story to tell. And I like that about miniatures, because there's a lot of interesting stories you can create. Like, is she a good guy? Is she a bad guy? Does she go off to battle for her, you know, her tribe to save them? Is she a warrior? Is she a villain? I don't know. There I just marked where I wanted her feet to go, put a little super glue on there, and hold it, and then think happy thoughts that it's gonna stay. There we go. And then in just a second here, I'll show you a couple more close-up shots of her outside. I'm also gonna do a quick spray coat of the gloss acrylic spray. Here I'm adding a little bit of a shadow in between her legs. Super happy with how it comes out. And here we are outside with my excellent camera work. I know you're very jealous. And my dog in the background. I have 2 dogs. They're both corgis. I use a nice amount of the acrylic coat. I'm really happy with that. And here she is out in the field. She's gonna go out to war. She's kind of climbing through a forest right now. Here's her back. Some of the fun details showing there. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed.